1969, and at that time I was in, I think, my 7th year of teaching. I was at a continuation high school in a ghetto, and which was a whole different experience for me. I grew up a typical American white male in the 1950s, and it was just a whole different world that opened up. I think that's where I learned to teach, was communicating with people, because I had kids with, they'd read at the 2nd or 3rd grade level, and they were 18, and other kids that were very bright but had been kicked out of a high school or were coming back from California Youth Authority, trying to get back in the mainstream. And you had to deal with all of that in one classroom, which was one of the secrets of good teaching, I think, was a smaller classroom where you can deal with people individually. By the time I retired, I was dealing with classes of 100, 125, and you don't get to know people the same way you did in the small schools. I don't know how to go back to that given the cost of things these days. But I taught high school during the day, and then Long Beach City College, where I had been a student and president of the student body when I was a student there. Taught there at night, and then I got a job at Orange Coast College, and for a large section. And they actually offered me a job, but it was teaching world history. And I told them, I said, I can teach US history or California history or anthropology, but not world history, I'm not qualified. At which point, Saddleback was advertising for a position down here in US history. So I came down and interviewed, and I was amazed, they hired me. And then when I got the job, they said, well, we have a very small faculty, and we're going to be in temporary buildings, trailers actually, and you'll have to teach more than US history. Can you teach California history? I said, oh yeah, that's really my major. How about anthropology? And I said, yeah, that's my minor. Can you teach physical anthropology? I said, yeah. How about sociology? I said, whoa. I had a sociology class, but it was several years ago. I ended up teaching 5 different major topics the first year, and I reintroduced myself to my wife on weekends because I was busy writing and reading to get on with these things the whole week. But we got through it, and it was fascinating. We started in temporary, actually our faculty was about 30 people, and literally the entire staff of the college could and did meet in a double-car garage. Had everybody in one place there. And we got to know each other very well. We had good parties, which helped us get to know each other. They put us in temporary buildings here on the lower campus. This was our final resting place. They moved us around a little bit before that. The buildings were, I'm not sure if they're double or triple wide trailers, but they were set up off the ground, and we would get frogs under the building that at night would croak when you're trying to do a night class. And then we had what I call critters, various sorts of mammals that would run across in the ceiling, and including rats. And the fellow in the room next to me finally got a large broom, and he would bang on them when they'd go across the ceiling. They ran across plastic panels, and the lights were above the panels, but you'd see the shadow of a little animal going across. So he'd reach up and bang that thing, and he did that one night, and I'm teaching in the next room, and all of a sudden there's this incredible odor coming down. It was a skunk that was there. So we had to evacuate two classrooms and finish the lecture a week later. We had, for budget purposes, we had one porta potty when we were starting out. So it was very democratic. We all lined up to use the thing, faculty and students and groundsmen, all on this area roughly where we are right now, in this building. And driving on campus today, I'm looking at all the trees are mature. Here's this huge campus. We had literally about 8 trailers in the middle of what had been a sheep ranch. And the first year or so, the Basque sheep herder did bring sheep onto campus. We had no cafeteria. We had a food truck that pulled onto the campus, and we all went up and bought food from that.
I was hired in 1981, and I was working in Los Angeles, of all things, and then I heard about a position at Irvine Valley College. So I came out to Irvine. Dale Larson was the vice president of instruction. I met with Dale, Bryn, Jordanian, and they hired me part-time. So I started here as a part-time faculty member for a little over a year, and then I was hired full-time as a part of categorical funds as in the EOPS program, where I was working with, as you know, Pete Espinosa, Mike Merrifield, and I don't know if you met Audrey Yamagata Noji. But that was the first full-time assignment I had at Saddleback, and that was partially as a result of some of the controversy in the district. And the district felt that it was in its best interest to hire someone who was an African American. I can't say it any other way, because there was a lawsuit pending, and it was an African American suing the district. And I was, I think, kind of a convenient way out to show on the district's part that they were concerned about diversity and discrimination. So I don't think it would have happened the way it happened had not the lawsuit been filed.
I was hired in fall of 1985. I started a little bit after the fall semester had already begun, and so I got to miss out on some of that, the activities that occur at the beginning of a new year. But I came in because I had been working at another college district, but I was working on the satellite campuses. And what I had really wanted to do was to get on the main campus. And it was suggested to me by the Dean of Counseling at Cypress College at that time to apply at Saddleback. And so when she said applied Saddleback, I think she was included at that time. It was called Saddleback Community College District. And so I did apply both at Irvine Valley and at Saddleback College. So that's basically how I ended up here, although I had no idea that it was so far from where I was living. I was new to, relatively new to California, and so from Oklahoma, and I was living in Cerritos. People still wonder how we went from Oklahoma to Cerritos. But the day I brought out my application, they told me that, how to go out to 405 and match it into the 5 and on and on. So okay, no problem. But it seemed like I just kept going and going and going until I finally got here. I said, oh my goodness, because I was not planning on moving. I liked Cerritos. We had just started having a family, and I thought it would be a good place to raise our kids. So I wasn't thinking about moving out from Cerritos, but this was quite a ways. In fact, from my driveway to where I parked behind the library was exactly 40 miles. And I did that for 20 years before all the kids were out of school and out of college, and we decided that there was no need for us to stay in that community, so we moved closer to the campus.
I started working here in August of 1978. I was among a group of people who were hired on to help what was then a low-power student station become a full-power national public radio affiliate. And so I think 3 or 4 of us were hired under the old CETA program, the Comprehensive Employment Training Act or something like that. And so I was hired to produce a talk show and to do reporting on local civic events. It turned out that when I was in college, I was originally going to get into public administration, and so I had worked a couple of summers in a local city, and I had also worked at the radio station and news, and so when I came here and they were looking for that, they sort of said, oh, perfect. So, so I started there, and for about almost a year, the management struggled to get the station on the air. It was a very rainy year, so they couldn't get the transmitter and the transmitter building and the antenna up the hill. And so it wasn't until May of 1979 that they finally got everything together and put the new full power station on the air. Finished working in August of 2014, so about, it was, I think we figured out it was 4 days shy of 36 years, so yeah, I'm a quitter. And so it was a pretty long time actually to be here, but it seemed to fly by now that I look back.